Good day, it is Althea from the Bible in 1 year. Today we spend time in 1 Kings 6 to 10. If God order, God pays. If you order, you pay. David wanted to build a house for the Lord, but God said no. Let's read 1 Kings 8 verse 17. Now it was determined in the heart of my father David to build a house, a temple for the Lord, the God of Israel. But the Lord said to my father David, because it was in your heart to build a house for my name, you did well, in that it was in your heart. Nevertheless, you shall not build a house, but your son, who shall be born to you, it is he who shall build it for my name and my presence. David had the power, the will, the influence, the connections, and the resources to build a house. Say, for instance, David did not like God's answer and went ahead and built the house as it was in his heart. He would have been out of the will of God. If we do what we want, not obeying God's will, we cannot and will not experience God's blessings. David knew this all too well from past experiences. Therefore, he humbly accepts the will of God, even though he would very much like to do so. Last week, we talked about Solomon that asked for wisdom when God asked what he wants. In chapter 3 and 4, we read that God was happy with Solomon's choice, and God also granted him the obvious thing he did not ask for, like a long life, wealth, honor, rest, and security. 1 Kings 4 verse 29 read, Now God gave Solomon exceptional wisdom and very great discernment and breadth to mind, like the sand of the seashore. Although God forbid David to build the temple, David did contribute a huge amount of materials needed, as we read in Chronicles 22 verse 14. Now listen, with great trouble I have prepared and provided for the house of the Lord 1,000 talents of gold, 1,000,000 talents of silver, and bronze and iron beyond weighing, for they are great in quantity. I have also prepared and provided timber and stone, and you may add to them. Further, you have workmen in abundance, stone cutters and stone masons and carpenters, and all men who are skilled in every kind of work. As for the gold, the silver, the bronze, and the iron, there is no limit. So arise and begin work, and may the Lord be with you. In chapter 5 we read that God gave Solomon favor with King Hiram, a friend of his father David. 1 Kings 5 verse 7 read, When Hiram heard the words of Solomon, he rejoiced greatly and said, Blessed be the Lord this day, who has given David a wise son to be king over the great people. In chapter 5 we also read how King Hiram provided what Solomon needed for the temple. Before David died, after the anointing of King Solomon, David teach Solomon to walk in the statutes of God, to execute his precepts, and to keep all his commandments by walking in them. Then God will carry out his promises. In chapter 6 verse 12, God personally teach the same word to Solomon. He wanted Solomon to take this to heart. It is very important. In chapter 7, Solomon finished work, and in chapter 8 he relocated the ark to the temple and consecrated the temple. Solomon prayed the Lord's blessing on the congregation. In verse 10 and 11 we read that God's presence filled the temple. Chapter 9 verse 4 to 6 teach us again that if we walk before God, keep integrity of heart, uplift, keep the commandments and statutes, then God will establish the throne of your kingdom. In chapter 10 we read that King Solomon's reputation was spread all over the world. Internationally, he gained popularity. We need to realize that God is a proactive God. If He asks you to do something, He will provide all that you may need. He will work favor in all involved. He will establish your calling. He will keep His promises over you. If God gives you an order, He will also provide for that order and bring it into fulfillment. May you have a God-listening heart and an understanding mind, so that you may know the will of God, that God will guide you into your calling and provide for everything you might need. Be blessed. Goodbye.